Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining our Teach It Forward session today. I am so excited to work with our panelists. We're going to be talking about multiple choice and all the other options in Gradient. The bit.ly link that you see on your screen will get you into our slides for today. It has some of the information about our panelists, as well as some great screenshots and examples of how they're using the tool to work with their students to give feedback and then reflect to analyze data. Let's get started. Today's session format follows these three objectives. So we're going to dig into the goals for using Gradient for these three amazing educators that have joined us. They're going to talk a little bit about what Gradient looks like in action for them, specifically different question types that they're using beyond multiple choice. And then just some of the lessons learned. You know, we're all from different places in different subject areas using this tool. And so there are some great tips that they have for you about what they learned along the way. My name's Katie, by the way. I work for GradeCam, and I'm joined by my counterpart, Erin, also on the webinar today. And our panelists are all from different spots. So we have Matt joining us from Calgary. We have Brent joining us from New York, and then Matthew joining us from Colorado. So thank you so much for taking the time to share your experiences with us today. And I'm going to let Matt start us off. I'll drive the slides, and he's going to share a little bit about how he's using Gradient. Go ahead, Matt.
Thank you. Thanks, Katie.
No problem.
So I'm teaching up here in Alberta, and we have a provincial diploma exam, which is, I'm not sure really what you do in the States, but it's essentially a state exam. So everybody in the province, when they finish grade 12, sits this exam, and that's the university entrance exam. So one of the things that we have on the science part is there's just multiple choice and something called numeric response. So our kids are doing really, really well at multiple choice, but not so well on these numeric response questions. So we were really looking for something that could help us develop those skills, because the content was the same, but the questions were different. So something was going on with the way they were answering those questions. So that was the driving force behind looking for something. So when we found GradeCam, obviously we just thought we had, struck gold, because it did exactly what we wanted it to do. It gave us instant results. So there's lots I could go on for, but I'll try to limit it to just these numeric response. So what are numeric response questions? So if you can go to the next slide. So here's just a couple of examples. So essentially they're just number questions, but marked by a machine. So traditionally we would have done this by a written response question, but the answer is in a certain format so that it's easy to mark. But there's a whole wide breadth. These are just 3 of the templates that I use, but there's probably about 15 different types of questions that you can ask with these answers. So some of them are just straightforward, like the first one here you see, just you write your answer to the correct significant digits and the computer marks it. Then these other ones, we take a lot of the true or false questions and you can put them together, and it's just a way of ordering things. So again, a wide range. The kids know the content, but weren't very good at answering these types of questions. If we had asked these as multiple choice, they probably would get them all right. And then the last one, these are my favorite. These are the hardest ones to write. These we call your choose your own adventure. So there might be more than one correct answer, but you have to get all of the series right. So they're really quite complicated. But the beauty of doing these type of questions is you can really delve deep into the outcome. Do the kids really understand the content? Whereas with a multiple choice, the answer's there. They've just got to, they can fiddle the game to try and work out which is the correct answer. Whereas with this, it's almost impossible. You either know it or you don't, and you have to show it. So it looks like when I open GradeCam, so this is just a little, we call them a little learning check, just a quick little quiz. So this quiz here that we have just on Boyle's Law has 3 multiple choice questions and then 2 numeric response. So the numeric response is set up. I just kind of did a screenshot of how it's set up. So we do a number grid. We renumber it numeric response 1 so it fits the question type. And then this is down the bottom, you can see that's what the scanning sheet looks like. So the kids just fill that in and then I can mark it. So the beauty of this is it doesn't take me hours to mark all of these. Instantly I can scan it. It's either right or wrong. If it's right, great, give it back to the kid, fantastic. If it's wrong, I can just look in, what have you done wrong? Call them over and go through it. So it just it's freed up all of my time. Instead of marking now I spend the majority of my time helping the kids, which, yeah, it's just changed everything for me. So.
That's so great to hear.
So yeah, so looking back, yeah, if I had known this when I started, I'd be a pretty good teacher now. So again, it's the way it's really changed what I've done is now I'm not doing as much work. Like there's a lot of prep work at the beginning, but it's freeing my time up in class. So I have more time to help kids that need help. I'm not in the corner quickly marking. The kids get instant response, which research shows improves learning. So yeah, again, ticks all the boxes. And the kids really hated it at the beginning, to be honest. But now that they know how to do the questions and they've got the skills and we've developed those, it's really paying off. And in the future, we just want to develop more of those question types. That's the hard part now, is having question banks of really good questions. So a lot of our PD is going into those sessions. So hopefully in the future we can really, key in on those outcomes and get really valuable data back. So yeah, that's it.
Thank you so much for sharing. That's awesome. I bet a lot of people, folks that will be watching this later will be able to relate. Can you talk a little bit more about, you said students hated it at first. What did they have a hard time with? What did they hate about it?
Well, I think the biggest hate was that they didn't like their results.
Ah.
Right. So it was bad. And I won't say it's unfair, but if there's 4 answers and you get 1 of them wrong and 3 of them correct, it marks it all wrong. So you have to get everything right. So there's no grade inflation that way. So that was a real frustration for them. I got 3 right, but can I get 75%? Like, come on, please. But no, but after a while, there's a reason why you got that wrong. If you get 1 wrong, it makes them all wrong, right? So do you really know what's going on? So that, yeah. And so now with the strategies that we use to teach those types of questions, the results are improving. And obviously with better results comes better confidence.
Yeah, that's amazing. I really like your emphasis on more than multiple choice, right? They have a way to guess, but this type of question really fine tunes your attention to what they need next and then their ability to demonstrate their mastery. So awesome. Thanks so much for sharing. We'll see if people have questions at the end, but I wanted to jump in and give Brent some time to share some of his experiences. So Brent, you're in a little bit different role. You're a data coordinator, so you get to work with K-5 teachers. So tell us a little bit about your school and then your experiences for using Gradient.
Sure, sounds great, Katie. Hey folks, I'm Brent. I'm a data coordinator here at Harlem Link. We're in New York City. And prior to that, I was a teacher for about 10 years, science teacher, for little ones as well. So I spent most of my years in the elementary schools. And right now we are absolutely loving our GradeCam journey. That's what I like to call it. It was very rocky at the start with regards to how teachers implemented the tool, but overall they were pretty excited to use it, and a lot of commonalities between our school, Matt, and I'm super excited to talk about that. Next slide. So we picked GradeCam to help with our academic analysis. We have did analysis before teachers teach the unit and after they teach a unit. For elementary school, that involves, let's say, like 10 different units. So teachers are needing pretty regularly to talk about how the students are performing, how their students performed in the past, and what they can do to become better for their students. On the admin side, I always ask myself, like, what is it that I can do to best support teachers and students? And my number one focus for this year was ensuring that the data was valid. We have a lot of busy teachers. We collect a lot of data as a school that tests a lot. And sometimes we might see 1-point questions getting 5 points. We might see students, playing dot to dot with our bubble sheets because they don't have a lot of experience with it. So the biggest reason why we brought GradeCam on was so we can have our students practice how to use a bubble sheet, but then also to help our teachers to make sure the data is valid, make sure that we are limiting the options for them so that they can really grade efficiently and focus all their time less on like the grading and the administrative stuff and focus on the data analysis, working with their students, and also working with the parents to help their students grow. So those are reasons why we chose GradeCam. And we had a really fun journey. Here's an example of a 4th grade exam. Sorry for any triggers that this causes in the room. This is basically an open response question. And the goal here, because teachers were taking about 15 minutes for every single subject, and we have about 8 subjects each day in elementary school. This is a huge chunk of time. The goal here was to grade this in less than, let's say, 5 minutes. You're finished with your entire class for all your assessments. You can use your app, you're good to go. So I used something called I think this is called the numeric, very similar to what Matt does, but instead of students filling it out, I had the teachers fill it out. And if you click next, Katie, you can see what it kind of looks like. It was a pretty short assessment. It involved very few multiple choice questions, let's say maybe 5, but then teachers have to fill in the rest of answers. And I honestly thought this was going to be an easy process for teachers. I thought they were just going to go ahead and just, write 1, 2, 3, whatever, call it a day. Some teachers got really inventive here. Some of them wrote like, they didn't know. They wanted to put 1 point, they put 1, 0. So students end up getting 10 points for 1 question. Some of them were writing in cursive, scratching out. It was a little messy on their end, and not their fault. I didn't explain to them, try to be a little bit nicer with our bubble sheets. But lo and behold, all of this, fast forward, we don't do that anymore for these type of questions. So if we click the mouse twice, we actually reformatted our assessments so that teachers and students have very specific jobs. Students bubble only 1 answer choice for the multiple choice questions, and then teachers go ahead and then they grade their rubric. They use a rubric to grade their questions. This has been phenomenal. Teachers absolutely love GradeCam, and this change has definitely supported our school and this transition to helping ensure data validity. So as far as our lessons learned, I think looking back, it would have been helpful to ensure that teachers had a ton of practice grading different types of questions. It's a new tool and it's super exciting. And there were a lot of assumptions made that I need to check myself as an admin, even though I come from a teacher background. So making sure they have a lot of practice. The second tip is our teachers absolutely really love GradeCam. In particular, their user-friendly, the way their program is set up to be user-friendly on the computer and on the app. In fact, most of our teachers use the app to grade their assessments right there with the students. And Matt, we also have students who get upset with their score since it's real time. So we coach our teachers to have a pre-conversations with students about how their grade doesn't define who they are. It's just a temperature check, giving them feedback on how they can grow and what they can do next time. And they really enjoy the way, or they love the way that I've organized our GradeCam. Everything has a specific naming convention. They know, regardless of the subject, we'll have the year, it will have the grade, the subject, and then what actual test it is. So here we have an example of this year's test for 3rd grade, their Unit 8 test. And I absolutely love that I can tag each test. This one is tagged as math UTs for this year. So come next year, I can just change the numbers and tag the previous test. And if I want to compare, I can just pull up both of them. I wouldn't have to worry about, following through a bunch of papers to figure that out. So that I'm excited for that. And then lastly, in the future, we want to expand to our younger grades. Right now, we only do it for 3rd through 5th, but we hope to include our younger grades, not in the same way, but just in a way to help those younger teachers with grading and better ways to communicate data with their students and with their teachers. Their peers, sorry.
I started talking and was on mute. I do it all the time. I loved that you shared that you started off with one question type. And then as you started seeing the data come in, you're like, okay, I need a different method, or I need to go back and train. I myself have done that many times. And I know there's so many other leaders in your position trying to help their teachers building assessments and then realizing like, whoops, we need to change gears. So I really appreciate you sharing that learning. From your perspective, do you feel like there's a particular report that your teachers really go to as like, that's the report I'm going to use? Because I know that your role is more about the analysis and like getting that feedback into teachers' hands quickly. Is there a favorite report that you're noticing or anything you wanted to point out?
I would say 2 things to that. As an admin, we basically filter the data from GradeCam into our own data studio. So for us, it'll be the CSV files where we can get an exam report, just pull up their responses, etc., and then crunch those numbers, do some predictions. But for teachers, they really love the visual reports, blanking on the names. But once they click on reports, they can just go down. They have a score graph, an item analysis, a summary, and for them, it's very visual and it's real time. So once they scan in, they usually just go to the reports and just go down the list and see what they can do right there in the moment. Sometimes it gives students feedback on what they did well and what they can do to improve. And that's by using those reports.
That's great. Thank you. Thanks for sharing those tips. I have one, I'm just so excited. There's folks in the chat wanting to ask questions, but I have one more. So hold those. Matthew, you get to go next. Tell us a little bit about how you're using the tool.
Sure. Thank you, Katie. So I am a high school teacher in Denver, Colorado. We are a Catholic coeducational private school. Fun fact, our school was actually opened as a dairy for orphans back in 1939. So we've been around for a while and we have fun facts and just love teaching there. And we draw from about 80 different zip codes around the Denver area. So pretty big, swath of students that we see every day. And so I teach human geography. So kind of similar to sitting for a test like Matt in Canada is the idea of, we have an end of course exam. And so a lot of the assessments that we do try to mimic that, especially during the class time, because, we don't have as much time as we think we do with our students. And so we want to maximize that time. And so using GradeCam has been a huge help to be able to organize that part. Basically, we focus on assessments at our school, probably about the last couple of years since I've been there. We switched over to GradeCam about 3 or 4 years ago. And the idea was thorough and thoughtful feedback. I worked as like a tech coach for our school to try and help get teachers to start feeling more comfortable with technology. We have a lot of extremely experienced teachers on campus. And so there's a little bit of a shyness to want to implement this kind of technology, especially with assessments, because they're just used to running off copies and grading it by hand. So the big part also with that was feedback as well to our students. And then beyond that, the reflection piece, to have them be able to not only, take the test or quiz or whatever it is, and then be able to sit back and go, okay, what did I do well? What do I need to work on? And I think that's a big part of education that we kind of rush every single day, trying to get through the lesson, get the test, turn to the next unit. Whereas that reflection piece of actually sitting down and seeing like the quantitative and qualitative data, like I can tell them like, you need to work on this, but it's another thing to see the number and be like, oh, okay, like this is statistically what's going on. I think that's a pretty helpful piece to them. So the two things that I love using in my class with GradeCam, the first one is the open response grading. So we have a lot of free response questions that my students, basically they'll answer. I'll print out this sheet for them, kind of like the typical, bubble sheet. But beyond that, you can add in these free response questions. And so I kind of put on there like, kind of a typical question that would be added to it. And by using the open response capture and then also having like adding in the line separators, it sounds so simple. But the idea is that the students can actually write out their responses similar to what they would have to do on the exam as well. And so doing that, they turn it in and I can hand grade it for them. And what I do is I put check marks on the like specific terms or concepts that they get correct. So like in the top one, this person earned 5 points out of 5 on our mastery check. So kind of just like a quiz. But I kind of check off specific parts where they answer the question directly. So this one was specifically about, I believe, the gender inequality index. What are some strengths and weaknesses of this, large, big index that's used by the United Nations, specifically through a political lens. And so, the top response, they got the point with, explaining the political consequence of this with laws, et cetera. And so check it off right there. There's a key point. That's where you get the points. And then for students that maybe don't get the full points on it, it's totally fine. I get them the feedback and say, look, you got kind of part of it right. And so, you put systemic system. Okay, what does that mean? I can put like how underneath there. I can remind them in the bottom part and the written part with my decent handwriting. It's not my best, not the best, but my decent handwriting, like, what's the political part? Like you talked about, oh yes, this thing is really, it's not good. Okay, well, you didn't get the full points for the political part. Put the number there and then enter it in, and it automatically calculates it. And I just basically run through all the same question, and it's very, very straightforward to be able to get that really good feedback to them pretty quickly. And the other thing that's awesome about that too is that's stored. And so the handwriting of it, that's not just me saying, you got a 3.5 out of 5. I'm not going to give you back your quiz because I can't give it back. No, I can share this with them as a class-wide item and say, like, look, this is where you got the point. This is where you didn't get the point. You need to add this. And next time when you do a question that's similar to that, you'll be able to have that feedback and hopefully, improve your response that next time around. Or to go back to your notes and go, oh, I don't have anything on this written down, or I need to, maybe put more detail into that and help them study for that next time. So that's one big usage that I use in my class. And the one that's a little bit, my fellow faculty members give me a hard time about this one, but I pass out something called the lowest standards. It's kind of kind of sounds sad, but on the next slide, it gets into this, like, we're assessing probably upwards of 30-ish skills and over 50-ish content standards for the entire year. And so that's a lot. And so when we get to the end of the term, they're like, well, what do I need to study to do well on the test? And before, I would just be like, well, you need to study everything because everything's going to be on the test. And we know that's not true. Like, we know that, everything may be on the test, but I like to kind of frame it around, like, I'm giving you guys know stuff. You guys have done well on things. You don't have a blanket 0% in the class. There's certain things that you're doing well and certain things that you need to work on. And so the lowest standards is a really helpful tool for me. I print out this and give them a strip of paper, cut it out, and hand it to them. And it's coded because every question is coded for content and skill. And it's a very straightforward look at, like, if it's a letter, if it's 3 letters and like a number, that means that it's a content piece and you probably need to go back to your notes and look over things. If it's a straight number, like if you can see on the left-hand side, there are a lot of them are, struggling with that 4 and 5C, whatever skill that is. That was quantitative data and like looking at a table. 5 was looking at like scale of analysis, an important geography skill. But the idea there is, these are things that you need to go back and look for questions. And when you're studying, not just to look at just study vocab, it's like, no, you need to look at maps and be able to draw out questions from there too, beyond just, what's the definition of this place. So I really like using that. And the thing is too, like a lot of them, like, okay, you missed like one out of like the 3 questions that I asked about it. So again, like, kind of what's going on. It's not just a blanket, like you're failing everything. Like there is things that and so when they get closer to May, when our exams are, I give them, I remind them of these strips of paper and say, look, like this is, you're there, you're close. Like if you're going to spend time between now and, May, whatever our test is, this is what you should be focusing on, to kind of narrow that scope, as opposed to every single term, all 100 something terms per unit, is a lot. So it's a really helpful thing, especially leading up to the end of course exam. In terms of lessons, I'm currently in grad school and doing geography, and I really wish I would have been better at statistical analysis, because I am not good at that. And so there's these like all these details, built into the program, like standard deviation, and I don't even know how to pronounce the other one, like point by serial, whatever. I'm just looking at them like, I wish I knew what that was, to be able to, and because you want to be able to analyze that, like that would be a really helpful tool, to help the students too, and also to check and see if I'm doing the right thing in my class as well for my test writing. So I think I would like to go back and take a statistics class once or twice. It would have been a good idea. The photo part is really helpful. The students do like that feedback piece. Again, that clear, like, this is where you got the point. They know that they have to use the terms. They can't just, walk around the question. They need to actually like hit the actual, term when they're writing. And it's quick, simple feedback. It's not super complex. When you pass back essays or long form writing, there's so much, it just feels like it's a longer thing to involve. Like, this is a 1 question feedback. Here we go. Let's move on. Let's get you your feedback and get to the next question. And for, in terms of our campus wide, I love having the content and skills to be able to be addressed, because you can tag multiple standards onto it. Some programs, like we used before, was only one standard per question, which was very limiting. And so to be able to hit multiple standards with every single question is really helpful. And so our school's trying to lean in more towards a standards-based grading model. And a lot of teachers are not very comfortable with that. And so to be able to like have this program and be able to have them like build in that piece, I think it's a better, teaching method to be able to help, not just students, but also teachers understand what they're teaching, and to actually show that students are performing mastery level work, which is what we're trying to go for with our standards-based grading systems. Mm-hmm.
Oh my gosh, so much goodness. It seems like there's a common theme between the 3 of you, that both for teachers and for students, this is just such a good tool for helping you narrow in on what to focus on, right? And I'm excited to hear that, like, your students preparing for AP, I remember those tests, like that's a daunting task. So to know, like, I don't have to prepare for every skill on the AP test, or I do, but I'm halfway there. I've done some of that heavy lifting, and now I know where to focus. And that, that applies to every grade level. So and I've heard from talking to you to prepare for this, your students have a pretty decent passing rate too. So that strategy seems to be working out.
It does. And we have students that, were what we probably categorize as like at risk, scoring 3s and 4s. And that, like, yeah, we got students who score 5s, like, yeah, whatever. Like, yeah, I call them palm tree students. Like, if I put a palm tree in the front of the class, they'd still get a 5. I'd probably serve more as a deterrent. But those students that get that 3, that you're like, they struggled all year and they get that 3, it's special. It's cool. And that's kind of helping them, feel that confidence also that they typically, earlier in schooling wouldn't be able to have.
Yeah, it's amazing how powerful data can be. Yeah, information. So we're done. You guys did a great job. We're under our time limit. We're ready to ask questions. Just for folks that are joining us for the first time, if you haven't been to one of our Teach It Forward sessions, there's more. We've done these before. So click on the links. You can watch other sessions. We've had different topics we focused on. So those of you that are teaching electives, foreign language, art, PE, any of the other subject areas, we have a Core Plus More session The folks that really love looking at data, we had other folks kind of in the role that Brent is in, that, you know, he's a data coordinator, he's helping teachers. So there's lots of folks that have data analysis tips for you, and then just a host of other topics. So take a look there. And you may have noticed when you've been logging into Gradient lately, these little badges keep popping up. So we're trying to recognize all the great, amazing work that you're doing. So just take that as our celebration. We're cheering along with you as you're using the tools. And then if you, as always, if you have questions for us, this is our email and our phone number, as well as our help center. The Cronbach Alpha, or however you say it, and point by serial information is in our help center. If you ever want to check out those articles, they're actually in there. And I too wish I had paid more attention in my statistics class. So I'm going to pause the recording, and anybody that wants to ask questions, please stay on with us. We're happy to answer those. And again, thank you for the rest of you that joined us. Stay here, don't go anywhere. I'm just going to pause.